everybody, and welcome back to Zoo School Live. My name is Laura, and today we're going to be meeting with a very special scaled friend, one of my favorite animals here at the zoo. And we'll be talking a little bit about his adaptations, what he likes to eat, where he'd be found naturally, and maybe, if he's in the mood, doing a little training with him. So we're going to be talking about the African Savannah monitor, which is a type of lizard. And this guy's name is Rodney, and Rodney is quite a large guy. He's going to be hanging out on this table, hopefully, while we explore him up close. So I'm going to go grab him real quick, and we'll get to say hi. He's very excited to come on out. All right, Mr. Rodney, here we go. So, as I mentioned, he's a pretty big lizard, one of the largest we have here. I think Tango, who some of you, if you're avid Zoo School Live followers, may have seen Tango the Tegu a few weeks back. I think she might have him beat by a little bit, but not by a whole lot. So Rodney is a type of lizard that normally would be found living in the African savanna, as his name suggests. But they actually can be found in kind of a wide variety of habitats, not just on the grasslands. They do live in more dry parts in the desert, as well as in some of the forested areas. So they kind of branch out to different places, but they are best adapted for a very dry and hot climate. So you can see, like many other lizards, he's covered in these nice thick scales, and he is shedding a little bit. He's a really good example of how lizards shed in patches instead of having one really large shed skin. He's shed in patches because he's got some spots here, but his scales are designed to help him in a couple different ways. He's going to use them to camouflage, so help him to hide. You can see he's got some different colors. He's kind of a tan and brown and gray. This is pretty typical for African savanna monitors. These are generally the colors they come in. What's really cool about his pattern, I think, on his scales is that he starts off with spots on his upper body, like on his main body, but then it switches to stripes on his tail. So you can see he's got like kind of a striped pattern here and spots in the front. And this is for a couple different reasons. We believe this is to help confuse a predator, so an animal that may want to come over and try to eat him may not be able to figure out which part of his body is which. And it also helps him to blend in with the different types of lighting and the grasses and the ground cover. So leaves and branches and sand and dirt, all of these different things, he's going to be able to blend in pretty well in a wide variety of places. Now, even though he is a very large lizard, it is important for him to stay safe because, as you can imagine, there are much larger predators on the African savanna, things like lions and wild dogs, hyenas, even leopards. They would go after a large lizard like Rodney, so he is not the biggest predator in the food chain out there, so he does have to stay safe. However, he is going to be eating other animals himself. He is a carnivore. And African savanna monitors have extremely strong jaws. So in his mouth here, he does have small teeth, and we'll give him an opportunity to eat some food in a little bit. But behind those teeth are very strong jaws, and they are designed to crack the shells of one of their favorite types of prey. So they often are going to be eating things like snails and other mollusks with hard shells, and they also eat things like millipedes and other insects and small invertebrates. One really cool thing that scientists have learned about the way savanna monitors hunt is that if they come across a poisonous millipede, they will actually grab it and kind of crush it and then rub it on the ground. And they'll rub it on the ground until all the poison, all the toxin has come off of that millipede, and then they'll eat it so they don't get sick from those toxins like other animals would, which is pretty smart. So despite the fact that reptiles don't always get enough credit, they are very intelligent animals. Hopefully Rodney is going to use his head and not jump off our table today. But those strong jaws are used for hunting a wide variety of foods, not just mollusks and millipedes. They will eat small rodents and small lizards, snakes, frogs, and bird eggs. They really love eggs. In fact, one of Rodney's favorite foods here at the zoo happens to be hard-boiled egg. So if you guys are hard-boiled egg fans at home, know that Rodney is right there with you. Now, in order to find this food, savanna monitors are going to use their amazing sense of smell. So you might have noticed at this point that Rodney has a very long tongue, and it is forked. So it has two parts that stick out, just like some of our snakes that we may have met on Zoo School Live so far. And like a snake, he's going to use that tongue in a similar fashion. He's actually going to be tasting the air, looking for food, by smelling around with that tongue. So he does have nostrils, and he can use his little nostrils to breathe, just like we would, but that tongue is going to be used for smelling for that food. So he's going to pick up a scent trail and track it down. He's not the fastest lizard out there, but he can get going when he needs to. Most of the time, though, he's going to ambush his food. So again, that camouflage helps him to hide and kind of sneak up. And because he's eating a lot of small animals, he can kind of sneak up behind them and then strike very quickly with that strong set of jaws. He also has pretty good eyesight, and you might notice that his eyes are on the side of his head. Let's move him over this way a little bit easier for you guys to see. So those eyes are located on the side of the head facing outward, and this helps him to see around the rest of his body pretty well. So he does have good vision in the front to track his food. You are really excited about going down there, huh? But he also needs those big eyes to face towards the back to, again, watch out for predators, to make sure nothing is going to sneak up on him and try to catch him when he's out in the savannah. So Rodney came to us about 5 or 6 years ago. He's going to be 8 years old this year. We don't know his exact birthday or his exact hatch day, as Savannah monitors do hatch out of eggs, but we do know his story. So Rodney is a great example of why it's really important to know exactly what kind of animal you're going to get when you're bringing a pet home and what that animal will need. We have talked a lot about that at Zoo School with all of our animals, especially our reptiles. It is so important to know how big something can grow and how much space they need, because Rodney was actually somebody's pet. And they got him when he was just a little guy, and when Savannah monitors first hatch, they're only a couple inches long, but they grow very quickly. So Rodney continued to eat as he was a baby and had a voracious appetite, and he got bigger and bigger and bigger until he's about the size he is now. Unfortunately, the person who had him was not able to provide him the type of home that he felt was good for Rodney. So he decided to donate him to us at the zoo and make sure that he had the best kind of situation possible, because he does need a lot of space and he needs a lot of exercise. You can see Rodney's a super active guy. He wants to explore, he wants to roam around and check places out. And unfortunately, his owner just did not know that that's what was going to happen a few years down the road. And this happens a lot. And one of the biggest threats to Savannah monitors is actually the pet trade. So their population in the wild is thankfully doing pretty well. They are considered least concern. So again, that means they're not endangered or necessarily threatened, but it doesn't mean there aren't any challenges for their species. In Rodney's case, Savannah monitors are taken out of the wild a lot for the pet trade and also for leather. So those scales on his body, like other reptiles, are often coveted. People want them to make different products out of them. But the pet trade is the #1 reason, and unfortunately, Savannah monitors don't have a very high success rate as surviving very long as a pet. Many of them don't make it past their 2nd birthday, so they can be kind of tricky to take good care of. And if you imagine, living in an African savanna, they need that space, they need lots of heat, they need a proper diet, so it can be pretty tricky to take good care of this type of lizard. So it's important to always know exactly what you're getting into when you decide to bring an animal home. We're really lucky and we're so thankful that Rodney came to us, because he is a very docile lizard. He's super relaxed around people, and he makes a great ambassador. So you can see he's just kind of hanging out. He's always busy sniffing around. But, just because he's a good representation doesn't mean that every Savannah monitor would make a really good animal to have in your home. He helps us out by teaching us. He is one of our ambassador animals at the zoo, so he comes out and makes an appearance during the summertime. He takes walks around the zoo. He has a special harness that he wears. He also does some target training, so we're going to offer him the target and see if he wants to do that, but sometimes he gets very distracted. As you can see, he is really exploring this whole place today. He's really enjoying crawling around and checking you guys out. So he's having a grand old time. So we'll offer him the target stick and see if he's interested, because he is just being a very speedy guy. So we'll start him off in the middle here. So the target stick, basically, Rodney just has to touch his nose to it and he'll get a little snack. So let's see if he is interested. We'll give him an easy one to start. Maybe. You can do it, Rodney. Maybe he just needs some cheering from you guys at home. There we go. Good job. Ooh, and we're going to see those powerful jaws at work. You can see he even swallows his food almost completely whole. He does have teeth, but they're more so for grabbing on to things instead of chewing. Savannah monitors could actually open up their jaws just like a snake can to help expand them a little bit. Very slow, but we'll take it. That was a good one. So we do this with Rodney to help him get exercise. Believe it or not, he can run. He's just not quite in the running mood today. And this helps us to kind of show off his adaptations too. So when we have guests here in the zoo, it can be fun for them to see him following a target or touching a target. Again, reptiles are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. Ooh, that's a big one. There we go. So you can see those jaws working really hard. He's getting a mixture of some mouse bits today. Oh, and he's gonna make some mess. We don't want him to eat the sand. Thank you. Magical hands in distance. Oh, we might actually get him to move for the target today. Let's see if he wants to try again. A little bit further, buddy. Oh, he's having a real lazy day. That's okay. I often feel like it can be a bit of a struggle as well. There we go. Good job, Rodney. We'll give him an easy one today. So you can see that big jaw, or those big jaws open up and that big neck really widens up for him to swallow his food in big, big chunks. Very nice job, Mr. Rodney. I hope you guys are applauding at home. He did a great job. We'll see if he wants to do another one. Maybe we can get him to move a little bit. Maybe. Oh, stretch. Oh, we'll give it to you. That was kind of cheating. Good job, buddy. So Rodney actually only eats about 3 or 4 times a week. Like other reptiles, he does not have a very fast metabolism. He does not have to keep his own body warm. He would use the external source in the wild, the sun, to warm his body up, especially in his habitat. Now, Savannah monitors do enjoy the warmth, but they are also burrowing lizards. So Rodney's got some serious claws on those feet to help him dig. So if he were overheated or wanted to get out of that hot African sun, he would actually climb underground. So sometimes they'll use other animals' burrows, and sometimes they'll actually dig holes themselves, kind of under rocks and branches and or in trees and things like that. So they are actually a burrowing lizard. I'm going to do one more, Rodney, and then maybe we'll do some questions. He's checking things out now. He says, how did I get that snack? How did I manage that? That's okay, Rodney. It's sometimes hard in the spotlight. We get it. Do one more. One more gentle touch. Maybe. So close. Oh, there we go. Good job, Rodney. All right, guys. We'll let him nom on that snack. Thank you very much for all my team's help with the snack feeding there. And we will start to take some questions. What do you guys want to know about our friend Rodney? So Isaiah would like to know, how long is his tail? Great question. I would say his tail is probably 1.5 to 2 feet long. So it's pretty big. And you can see it's pretty thick at the top and then kind of comes down to a ridge at the bottom. They can actually use their tail to kind of swing around. If they're feeling a little dangerous or aggressive, they will use that to intimidate other animals. Gretchen wants to know, how big can they get? So on average, they're between 2.5 to 4 feet, sometimes a little bit bigger. Rodney's pretty average size, so he will not get too much bigger than this. At 8 years old, he's kind of done growing for the most part, but they can be upwards of 4 feet. And they can weigh up to 10, 11, 12, sometimes 13 pounds, which is pretty heavy. Rodney himself is only about 9 pounds, but again, we make sure he's nice and healthy and he runs around and he has to work for his food a little bit today like he did. Good questions, guys. All right, oh, and Cole was asking how much does he weigh? So 9 pounds. Aaron would like to know how long do they live? So typically they can live between 10 and 15 years, sometimes longer. Usually as long as they're well cared for in a zoo setting, they can live a little bit longer, but 10 to 15 is the average. So Rodney is 8 years old this year, so we hope he'll be around for a long time. Liam and Ronan would like to know, what are his predators? Great question. So he's from the African Savannah, which means there are some quite large animals out there that would want to make a snack out of Rodney. Things like large big cats like lions and leopards, wild dogs, hyenas, even other larger reptiles. So very large snake species or other larger lizards could eat them as well. And, big yarn, passing that food down. So they do have a lot of animals to watch out for in their habitat. Faith wants to know, do they have good vision? They have pretty good vision, so Rodney can see movement really well. That's how he's going to track his food, which is why when I was kind of offering him the target stick, I was trying to move it around a little bit to help make sure he knew where to be looking, because we're not exactly sure what kind of color vision reptiles have as far as Rodney goes. There's not a lot of information on lizards, so we believe that he can see some color, but we're not 100% sure if how many or different types or what spectrum. So we use a red target stick with Rodney. Interesting fact, we actually found out that Rodney does not like, he doesn't like the sand apparently, but Rodney does not like the purple target stick. So we tried 2 different colors and he really did not like purple, he liked red, so we stuck with red. But their vision is pretty good. Cameron would like to know, what are their defenses? Great question. So they do have a strong, powerful bite. They can use that if they have to. If they felt threatened, they would kind of puff their bodies up and they start to kind of swing that tail back and forth. They can also make a hissing sound if they need to try to intimidate a predator, and then they can also dig and run away. So they would try to escape probably first, but if that was not an option, they can puff up their bodies, kind of swing their tail, and they make that hissing sound. And then if he had to, he could use that those sharp teeth and that powerful set of jaws. All right, Amelia would like to know, does he have heat sense like snakes? Ooh, Amelia's been paying attention to zoo school. That's a great question. So Rodney does not have heat sensing pits like our ball python Monty, who we met a few weeks back. So he does not have that ability, but he does have an excellent sense of smell. Great question. The Lair family would like to know, who is his best friend? Oh man, I would like to think that it's me. Rodney and I, he was one of the first animals I trained here at the zoo, so we have a pretty special relationship. But Rodney gets along with pretty much everyone and anyone that he meets. He really enjoys guests and going out in the zoo. So Rodney has a lot of best friends. Kate would like to know, can Rodney see in color? And yeah, that's great. So we just kind of touched on that a little bit. We do believe they can see color. We're not 100% sure if there are extra special spectrums available. We're pretty sure they can see quite a few. But there's still a lot to be learned about lizard vision. So again, we did an experiment ourselves and we found out that Rodney prefers the color red to purple, but that might not be all lizards. Preston would like to know, are his nails or his claws sharp? They are a little bit, but not as sharp as you might think. So he does wear them down. Let's see if we can kind of show you guys. Because he is a digging lizard, you can see that they're rounded and they do have a tip to them, but they're pretty blunt at the end. So he does wear them down a lot on the rocks and the grass and the dirt and the things in his enclosure and when we take him for walks. So they're not as sharp as some other lizard nails. Good question. Lachlan would like to know, what time does he sleep? Good question. Rodney is usually going to be active during the day. However, he does enjoy taking naps. So in his enclosure, he has a nice big heat lamp to make it seem like it's the African sun. And Rodney really enjoys napping underneath that. But most of the time, he's active during the day. They are diurnal animals. Henry would like to know, why does he have a broad head compared to other monitors? Ooh, that's a good question. So my guess would be the variety of foods that he's going to eat. He needs those really strong jaws. So remember, he's got jaws designed to help him crush shells and exoskeletons of other animals, whereas some monitors might have a different diet and might be hunting for things that they don't need as broad or strong of a set of jaws. The funny thing is with the monitor lizards in general, it includes a wide variety of species and they live in a wide variety of habitats. Some of them are excellent climbers, some of them are good at swimming. Rodney's here is good at digging. The term monitor lizard comes from the fact that they were observed a long, long time ago along the Nile River and in Africa, and people believed that they were watching out for other predators, when in reality they were probably looking for food, things like, alligator eggs or other animals, food, other babies and things. So they may not have been watching out for those big predators and protecting the humans like we thought, but they were watching out for different foods. Rodney's on the move now. All right, Eli wants to know, does he climb trees? They can climb. They are not the best climbers as far as different types of lizards go, but they are capable of climbing small trees. So they do prefer to be on the ground, though. Lakea wants to know, what toys does he play with? So we give him a lot of different things to climb around on in his home. We have occasionally given him balls and stuff and hidden his food a little bit, but he doesn't have a whole lot of objects that we would consider toys. The target stick is probably the closest thing to his toy. He will follow that around and kind of chase it down. But lizards have been known to play with things like that, with balls and different toys. So my guess for him is probably he enjoys different kinds of things that he can move around. So different dirt, rocks, rafts, things he can dig under and hide in. Owen and Tyler would like to know, does he have any family members at the zoo? He does not have any family members here with us. Rodney lives on his own, in his own enclosure, which is typically how they would live in the wild. So they are solitary. They don't live in big groups. And after they hatch out of the egg, they would pretty much leave the nest and probably not see their siblings again. Joseph wants to know, why does he have a big long tail? So that big long tail can be used to help defend himself. So if he comes across a large predator that he needs to try to scare off, he will use that big tail to kind of swing it around. But it also helps him to kind of balance out his body. So you can see he's got a very long body with that big head. That big tail kind of helps to balance him so he's not top heavy. Good question. Anderson would like to know, do they swim? Yes, they do swim. Rodney actually really enjoys soaking himself, so he takes a bath every single day. He even gets a little bit of spa day action. We have a toothbrush we scrub him with. But they are capable of swimming, and they do that to navigate their habitat. Ellington would like to know, Ellington and Avery would like to know, how long is his tongue? Ooh, that's a really good question. I have never measured Rodney's tongue, but I would be willing to say it's probably close to 3 inches long. It's a really big tongue. Of course, now he's not going to stick it out for us. There you go. So he's got a really large tongue. He can stretch it really far. All right, Carson would like to know, do they bite? Great question, Carson. Just like any animal with a mouth, they are capable of biting. Rodney is no exception. Now, Rodney has lived with people his whole life, and he's very comfortable being handled and touched, and we try really hard to make sure he's always comfortable and that we don't put him in any situations where he might want to bite us, but he is capable of biting. Thankfully, he has not purposefully bit any of us. We do have to be careful when we're feeding him because he does get very excited about food, as we saw earlier. All right, guys, this is going to be our last question. Avery wants to know, does he eat ants, and do they eat ants in the wild? Good question. They most definitely would eat some ants in the wild. Rodney does not really eat ants here. We give him crickets and sometimes mealworms. He gets little mice bits and his meat chunks. And again, hard-boiled egg, which is by far one of his favorite foods. But in the wild, they would eat all different kinds of insects. That's a really great question. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed visiting with my friend Rodney today at the zoo, and that you guys will tune back in again tomorrow for another Zoo School Live. Remember, if you can donate in this time of need, we would really appreciate it. Make sure you check out our website for other episodes and other activities and fun stuff for you guys to do while we're all at home. All right, and Rodney says thanks again. Have a great day, guys.